Vacations are supposed to bring couples closer. New experiences, romantic dinners, time away from the grind. That's what I thought when I booked a week-long trip to Mexico for my fiancé and me. I imagined sunsets on the beach, long conversations over cocktails, and maybe even strengthening the bond before we officially tied the knot. Instead, one dinner on that trip opened my eyes to something I had been ignoring for far too long. It was our third night there. We'd spent the day exploring the town, swimming and relaxing. That evening, I booked a fancy dinner at a seaside restaurant. White tablecloths, candles flickering, waves crashing in the distance. It felt perfect. We were seated at a small table on the patio, surrounded by other couples and families. The food smelled incredible. I was nervous, but in a good way, thinking about how I'd toast to us, to our future. But before I could say much, she leaned across the table, smirked, and in a voice that was definitely loud enough for the people at the next table to hear, said, "You know, sometimes I wonder if I'm settling." I froze. She leaned back in her chair, sipping her wine like she'd just told me the weather. I glanced around. The couple sitting near us looked down awkwardly at their plates. My face was burning. I whispered, "What did you just say?" She smiled, almost amused. "Relax. I just mean you're stable, dependable, safe. But you're not exactly exciting. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I'd chosen differently." The words hit me harder than anything ever had. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Why would you say that here? In public?" "Because it's true," she said with a shrug. "And you're too sensitive. You need to learn not to care so much about what other people think." The rest of the dinner was silent. I couldn't even taste the food. All I could think about was the way she'd casually humiliated me in front of strangers. Back at the hotel, I asked her again, "Do you really think you're settling with me?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are you still on that? I was just being honest. Isn't honesty a good thing? Would you rather I lied and told you you're the best I've ever had in every way?" "Yes," I said flatly, "because that's what people who love each other do. They lift each other up. They don't drag each other down in public." She laughed. "You're overreacting. It's not that deep. I love you, okay? But sometimes you're boring." That's all I meant. Boring. Settling. Stable. Safe. The words swirled around my head for the rest of the trip. Every time we walked on the beach, I wondered if she was comparing me to someone else. Every time we sat down for a meal, I wondered if she'd say something cutting again. By the time we flew home, I felt like I was carrying a weight I couldn't put down. A week later, I confronted her again. I told her, "I can't marry someone who thinks I'm a backup plan, who calls me boring, who humiliates me in public." She looked at me like I was insane. "So you're going to throw away our engagement over one comment?" "It wasn't just one comment," I said. It was the truth slipping out. And once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it. She tried to argue. She said I was dramatic, insecure, ungrateful for the relationship we had. But deep down, I knew she was projecting. Because if she really believed I was the one, she wouldn't have said what she did. Not in public, not in private. Not ever. So I ended it. She told everyone I dumped her because I couldn't handle a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It was the moment I realized she didn't love me the way I deserved to be loved. Now, months later, I look back at that dinner and see it for what it was. A blessing in disguise. Because imagine if I hadn't heard those words until years into a marriage. Imagine finding out, after vows and kids and mortgages, that she always thought she settled. Better to know now than later. So, yeah. During our vacation, my fiancé pulled me aside at dinner and said loud enough for some to hear, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm settling." She thought it was nothing. But for me, it was everything. It was the truth that set me free.